This is Dad's Wallet, where we save you money and build your family lasting wealth. Today, I'm going to address Biden's student loan forgiveness news. We're going to talk about the reactions that people have had. We're going to talk about the details of the news. And we're going to talk about my 2 cents on how people can dig a little deeper into what's going on and maybe some information that you haven't heard yet. So, to start out, there's two different types of reactions. I've had people that have seemed very happy because they're getting a jump start out of debt. They're getting $10,000, $20,000 forgiven, and that's incredibly exciting. Current college students, people about to go out of college, people that have been out of college for forever. And there's also people that have a lot of negative feelings, feeling those negative feelings of envy or anger. Where was my help when I was paying off my loans, through hard-earned dollars right out of college? Now, there's a lot of context that we can unpack. What is going on here with student debt and this crisis that we're experiencing? According to the Department of Education analysis, the typical undergraduate student with loans now graduates with nearly $25,000 in debt. Now, I've seen it as high as $40,000 in other reports, and I think a discrepancy could be federally held loans versus private loans, loans that have been refinanced. Other kinds of consumer debt out there, maybe on a car or a credit card that may not be accounted for as much. Now, what does this new executive order do? First, there's a continued freeze on student loan payments until the end of this year. So starting January 1st, 2023, you can expect to start having to pay your student loans with interest again. Those are the federally held loans, not the ones that you've refinanced. And it's also important to note that the Department of Education, here's the meat of it, will provide $20,000 in debt cancellation to Pell Grant recipients with loans held by the federal government. Now, what are Pell Grants? Pell Grants once covered nearly 80% of the cost of a 4-year public college degree for students for working families, but now it only covers about a third at best. So, Pell Grants are awarded based on financial need and, unlike loans, typically don't have to be repaid. Applicants must complete a free application for the FAFSA form in order to qualify, and the school determines how much Pell Grant money you get. Now, here's a graph showing what kind of families are getting this benefit, whether it's a $20,000 for Pell Grant, $10,000 for other federal loans held by the Department of Education. We're seeing 66% of families have $30,000 of less of income, and 28% are in that $30,000 to $60,000 range. Now, this is a pathway from poverty to the middle class. That's what it was designed to do. But it has been changing lives in a diminishing return year after year. We see that with this graph here. The cost of attending college has skyrocketed. That's that reddish pink line. Public 4-year university cost throughout the years from the 80s to now. And that yellow line, that's the maximum Pell Grant values that people are receiving. You see that gap? That's the increase in debt that we're seeing year over year as college costs more, but the federal subsidy for getting out of poverty and into the middle class has stayed the same. Now, my 2 cents is that this type of stimulus is necessary. We have to close that gap somehow, but this action is inflationary. So this kind of stimulus money being pumped in it's causing inflation. I mean, this is not the whole cause of inflation in the economy, but this is certainly a cause of inflation. There's also irony with this released right on the heels of the Inflation Reduction Act, where regardless of how much you think that act is actually reducing inflation, there's a lot of confusion on why we have an Inflation Reduction Act and then this inflationary stimulus measure for reducing student debt. I think these are two independent things, but they're happening in the same economy at the same time during the same election cycle, and it's important to pay attention to. I don't think that either of these are really about inflation. I don't think these are actually really about debt either. These are political tools or policy vehicles. They have good and bad aspects to them inherently because they're political in nature. They're a means to an end, and they're successful for some people, and they benefit some, and they hurt other people's goals, and they are causing a lot of negative emotions in another part of the population. And what matters most is how it's affecting you directly now and in your near future. So let's unpack that a little bit more. Now, if you find yourself in a position where you worked hard, but you paid your student debt off with your hard-earned dollars. Maybe you worked hard to get into a higher paying job after graduation. Or maybe you have student loan debt, you didn't even graduate, but you entered into the workforce and you found yourself a high paying job to get yourself in a position where you could pay that debt off yourself. And through that process, you worked hard to be smart with your spending, and you allocated more than you would have liked to of your income to reduce that debt. That built character, and that is going to continue to pay dividends to you for the rest of your life. And that's not something to disregard here. This is a position that you've been put in, whether you appreciate it or not, where this is your situation with student debt, and how you address it yourself. That's your business. Now, a lot of people don't like when the government is entering into the business, and now we're in theory floating the tax bill for the continued stimulus onto 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, and for future generations. I have kids. I understand I don't want them to be paying for the current student debt crisis and the system that's been put in place. But I also don't think that any of the measures that we've seen have been designed to address the system at all. I think they're band-aids. I think they're short-term solutions for a short-term problem, for a short-term effect, but they may have been creating long-term emotional damage in certain groups of the population. So if you're one of those people that have received this news and you find yourself feeling angry or maybe envious or just disappointed, I don't pity you. I feel what those emotions you're feeling, but I applaud you for getting after it, for taking that step into that job that pays you better so that you can pay down this debt, for being conscious and smart with your spending so that you could allocate more towards that goal, and for accomplishing that goal in your life and getting after it and being a better person for it. Not better necessarily than your neighbor next door, but better than the person you could have been should you not have made those decisions. So if you still have debt holding you back from your progress, if you're on the other side of the equation, maybe you felt a lot of relief. Maybe you felt a lot of joy from this news. I've seen people cheering, applauding, just living their best life. This is Christmas came early, like let's call it what it is. It is a short-term high that you can experience and you can maximize on. Now, this is your opportunity to get ahead and not expect another opportunity like this to fall from the sky. If you find yourself not paying down your principal on your student debt because you expect even more of it to be forgiven, and you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to be paying high interest loans starting January 1st of 2023, then this is your opportunity for the next few months to continue to attack that debt and to maybe work harder, take that second job, make a career move, develop more skills, tighten up that budget in a way that you can reduce your debt load. Because here's the deal. Debt isn't going to serve you 3, 5, or 10 years down the road. That degree may serve you, that career choice may serve you, but there's an individual that I was in college with who was a few years ahead of me, and when I was studying music. And so music, not a huge high-paying field, but as I heard that there was a lot of celebration in this person's life, they had less than 10% of their student loan debt was forgiven with this act. So whether it was $10,000 or $20,000, this person has a lot of debt that they've been carrying around. I'm not young. This has been 10 plus years out of college. So for the past 10 plus years, they've been continuing to pay on or service this debt, even if there is a little moratorium on their debt payments. 7 to 10% may be forgiven, maybe, if this goes through in their life. And the rest of that, they're continuing to carry around, and it is holding them back from their long-term goals. Whether it's getting married, having kids, buying a house, living a different lifestyle that you may have wanted or dreamed of. We've all had those aspirational goals, and that kind of student loan debt is following them around, not year by year, but decade by decade into new chapters of their life, and it's depreciating the overall experience that they're able to have as they go from one stage to the next. So here's my underlying point is, if you paid off debt, I applaud you and I'm happy for you. If you still have student loan debt and this has given you an advantage that you never thought you would, whether you're currently a student, you used to be a student recently, or used to be a student forever ago, this is an opportunity for you to tackle more of that. Take this as a launch pad for you to continue your journey into paying down this debt and getting ahead into your next chapter of your life. Whatever your big goals are, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, those are going to be made real sooner and better if you don't have this carrying around with you. The relief you feel for not having another $10,000 or $20,000 in debt to pay off, that feeling can happen again and again if you were to pay off more of this debt. So I want to encourage you into continuing to attack that, and tell me down below what kind of feelings you felt. If you felt angry, or if you felt relief, or something in between. I like to hear that feedback because I want to know how this is affecting you, a real person in your real life, in the near and short term future for you and your family.